Welcome back. I'm Tedward, and today, thanks to Bond Group in Waltham, Massachusetts, we are starting Bonnet Up on this Series 1 1963 Jaguar E-Type, or XKE for the North American market. It's powered by a beautiful straight six, 3.8 liter displacement, rear wheel drive, and very clever, beautiful design on this Roadster. You can see that the front of the car is almost entirely taken up by that hood, and it's one of the most beautiful hoods in the game. This is one of the most beautiful cars in the game, especially as a Roadster. The top-down experience on this car, phenomenal. Now, being a 63 model year, you would expect this to have a Moss box, a partially synchronized 4-speed manual. This one has been restored, and they actually put the updated gearbox that you would find on the later Series 1 and the 4.2 liter Series 2 cars. So this is very enjoyable and easy to drive. But I want to start under the hood because it's just absolutely gorgeous in here, especially because it's like this whole car is just available for your access. You can deal with this whole front subframe, and that's one of the beautiful things about these cars is that this front subframe, rather than being attached to a ladder frame, was attached to the tub, which was pretty unique. What's wild is we drove an XK120 the other day, and that car is great to drive, but it feels like a horse-drawn carriage in comparison to this landing on the moon. I mean, really, there's a big difference between that 1954 and this 1963 Jag. Lots of Lucas electronics, but we have 3 carburetors, making sure that this is running nice and smoothly. So 1 carb per 2 cylinders. And man, I just want to get out and drive. We've driven a bunch of these on the channel, so I feel like today is just a therapy drive. We can go and enjoy the sights and sounds. But first, I do want to show you these wheels because we've got these gorgeous wire knockoffs wrapped in the Vredestein Sprint Classics. We love that. We've got 4-wheel disc brakes, but it's also a little weird to say wheel disc brakes because up front, you've got typical caliper and rotor setup. In the back, yes, it has disc brakes, but they are inboard, so they're set up right next to that differential. So let's close up this bonnet, which is kind of a pain. Gotta do this, and we'll come in over here. We got 2 latches, so there's 1 on each side. You push in and turn, but this one requires a little bit of force to just get it lined up. There we go, she's in. And while we're walking around to the other side, I'll show you the trunk space. Not immense, but plenty. I guess you can wedge some deeper bags in there, but it'll do the job. All right, she's locked in, and even if it wasn't, it's not going anywhere because it flips up that way. What's really cool about the design of this car is just how inboard these wheels are. It's so wild. I mean, this is not the hella flush stance boy life that we would live today, but God, does it look good. So here we have our key. We can pop it in our ignition, get our fuel pump going, everything's good, and then push to start right here. We're warmed up, we do not need the choke, but if you did, it's right here. Jumps right to life. Now these Smith's gauges are interesting to me because if you watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off very closely, when they show the odometer on the Ferrari, the California Spider, it's supposed to be a 250 GT California Spider, they show a Smith's gauge for the odometer. It's pretty obvious, and it should have, I think, Veglia gauges. I could be wrong, but it looks to me like whatever gauges were in that car or whatever they used for that shot were from a Jag. And then, let's take a look over here. We have our ashtray for our cigarette or cigars. Flips around with the Jag logo there, very nice. And we do even have the luxury of seat belts in this car, which I am going to use the lap belt here because it seems slightly less deadly with it. Okay, and we have a telescoping wheel if need be. Should be okay like that. Handbrake into first, and it's easy into first because it's synchronized. And away we go. Now, I'm gonna do a U-turn here. Listen to this differential. It feels like, man, locking up that inside rear already. So that tells me that this diff is pretty aggressive. Gonna be conscious of that around some corners. steering, fairly heavy, no power going there. Super easy into gear. This I tell you, this upgraded manual gearbox that they did with these cars is a total game changer. It goes from being a cumbersome driving experience where it's charming for a little while, and then eventually if you're hungry and a little tired and you just want to go home, the fun wears off. This box is fantastic. This box is easy. It wants to be driven. Now the E-Type is the successor to the XK150, so 120 came quite a bit before that, but the 150 still, it has a lot of vibes of the 120. This car just feels so much like an advancement from those generations. It feels so much more drivable, so much more enjoyable, so much faster in a corner, and confidence inspiring, not to mention these brakes. Now this car is just restored, so it may be a little unfair to compare these brakes against something from the time period. But either way, I get in this car and I feel really confident carrying a little bit of speed, knowing that I can bleed it off if I need to. The steering in these cars is fantastic, and the steering wheel, although still intrusive by modern standards in the cabin, much easier to drive than a 120 or a 150. That's great when you see vintage racing with these cars, because they still got these skinny little tires on them, which means that they're designed to kind of slide and back their way into corners. And it's really fun to watch these at Goodwood, because you just can't believe the amount of slip angle it takes to kind of get one of these around a corner in a hurry. The shift action with this box is so good. It's so easy to place. It's so mechanical. It's so instantaneously where you need it to be, and very clear that you have entered the correct gear. And it's without drama. I feel no teeth. I feel no gears. I just feel a positive acceptance to where I'd like to go into the next gear. Whereas in the Moss box, there's a little more of like a, you can tell tactility wise what's going on with everything, which I get. That's charming in some ways, but in other ways very annoying. love all the drivetrain noise. The joy of the E-Type is that it drives as good as it looks. That's not always the case. There's some great old vintage cars that are fun to look at, but they're hard to get in, they're hard to drive, they're cumbersome, they crunch all the gears, you gotta be really laser sharp and focused to get them around a corner. But the E-Type is high end. It's a driver's car, and it's a driver's car today. I do recommend getting the later gearbox. I'm not gonna say I don't like a Moss box, but I will tell you, if it was my car, I would opt for this. And while the 4.2 has more torque, the 3.8 is still plenty torquey, and you don't need to go fast. I mean, we're fine here. It'll be just fine getting you around town. It's still a quick car by today's standards, so it should be just fine. Yeah, somehow this car manages to be ultra sexy and ultra classy simultaneously. Like Lamborghinis are sexy, Mercedes-Benz, classy. But this thing kind of walks this incredible line where you're a sex symbol in a business suit. But I still feel perfectly appropriate driving around in a t-shirt and jeans. Go nice and easy through here. School is in session now, so we got to be cautious, make sure none of the kiddos get hit by a 1960s Jag. Although not a terrible way to go if you're going to get hit by a car. Might as well be this and not a Kia, but great visibility. And look at this, in 2023, we can hunt down a Subaru in our 1963 Jag E-Type. People are still gonna slow you down because this thing is a proper sports car, but that's all right because you look good doing it. So, I hope you enjoyed a little motoring in the E-Type. I know I did. I love a top-down experience in these cars, especially in the summer because it gets mighty hot in the coupes. And yeah, I'm gonna go work my way back through some back roads after we get off at 95. Go back to Bond Group, where all the toys are. Thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one. Steering is awfully heavy at low speeds. Something to take into consideration. Got to muscle it around just a little bit. But that means incredible feedback through your fingertips. It's fantastic. And even, I'm not that tall. I'm like 5'10". Okay, maybe I'm actually 5'9". But I'm like above this windscreen. Now that's going to provide no safety if we flip this thing. But just something to be aware of. You have the right of way, buddy. I've got the yield. You do you things. I'll do me things.